Mr. Shashital, Mr. Gupta, General Patankar, Major Gaurav Arya. I'm indeed, and of course, the very patient participants who've been here since morning for this workshop. Good evening. It's indeed a proud privilege to have been invited by the Bharatiya Vichar Sadhana to participate in this excellent workshop. I've been here since afternoon and I've been watching the deliberations, the excellent speakers who've given their points of view and the very incisive questions that have come from the audience as well. Pune is a vibrant city, and especially as far as education and training is concerned, I think even the defense services haven't been far behind and have many institutions here itself. In fact, I was very fortunate, and that's why a special love for Pune is because almost half a century back, yes, almost 50 years back, we joined the National Defense Academy as cadets, and I have two of my classmates sitting here, so it's even more heartening. And after that, to get commissioned into the Indian Army, well before the 1971 Indo-Pak War, because that was the icing on the cake, literally, we have been able to get an opportunity to fight in a war, because fighting in a war is altogether different from any other kind of experience. It may have been only 14 days out of a span of 40 years in the Indian Army, but those 14 days leaves or have left us an imprint which will always be indelible. Because not only did you see live weapons firing and you saw casualties, you saw your comrades, but you saw the morale of the Indian Army, the Jawans and the officers. And that is what has kept us going for the remainder 40 years, if I may put it. They are just absolutely amazing. Coming down to this topic of Indo-Pak relations, I think it is a very important and a topic which will be perennial. When Mr. Bhagwan Datar spoke to me and asked me to come and be part of this workshop, I really felt that this is an area which, whatever little we can share our experiences, it would be good for the participants in this workshop. I'll try and restrict myself to the security aspects and try and not cover whatever else what you've been through since morning. And at the end of the day, even reception becomes a problem. So I'll try and keep it short, but I will touch upon some significant issues so that those are something with which you can take home. Now, we are all aware that we fought 4 wars, and I include Kargil also as one of those, because when you fight bullets and you have your Bofors firing and you have the Air Force going in and there are over 500 odd casualties, then obviously that has been a war, a conflict of great magnitude. But out of all these 4 wars which we have fought with Pakistan, the one which has hurt them the most, the humiliation which they have suffered after 1971, and General Patankar also alluded to this, is the dismemberment of the nation. They lost East Pakistan and a new nation, Bangladesh, was born. 93,000 of their soldiers became prisoners of war. And that is something which is still irking and will always irk the Pakistan Army. And Gaurav also mentioned this. So what was the answer to it. They found it difficult to win a war. So under the authorship of Mr. Bhutto and General Ziaul Haq, and of course it's been carried right since then, is to carry out operations. Hybrid warfare has come out as a term much later, but what they've been doing, they called it 1,000 cuts. Really speaking, it was a war of proxy which they were doing within Kashmir, and later on translated into state-sponsored terrorism within the rest of the country as well. So what they found, and when did really this proxy war start? If you remember, in 1987 to 89, that was the period when elections in 87 which were held in Jammu and Kashmir, and there were problems in the outcome of the elections. There was great unrest, the students revolted, and they were put behind bars. But the period between July and December 1989 saw the release of a lot of these prisoners. And who were these? These people were the leaders of these tanzeems, whom the ISI called the Inner War Council. And these were the people, once they were released, that became a trigger for the start of the proxy war. Not to forget that there was already an environment which had been created over those 2 years within Jammu and Kashmir. Some people call it the 3 M's, the madrasas, which was alluded to earlier, the madrasas, the Maulvis, who were brought in from UP at that point of time, given permanent residentship. And the third is the Muslimization and an overall fundamentalism which was carried out. So all this really created the environment to start a proxy war. And what exactly is proxy war? Proxy war, if I may put it very simplistically, is one, it is a low risk option. Low risk means you do not have to employ your armed forces, you can use the terrorists. It is a low cost option also. And also because it is not likely to escalate into an overall war. But it has a high dividend option, because what have you been able to do? You've been able to ensure that a lot of security forces in great numbers have been pegged down in the area of Jammu and Kashmir. Also, you've been able to do a high visibility, means all over the globe. You can go to the United Nations, you can go in any of the forums and talk about it and bring the Kashmir issue abroad globally. And yet, easy deniability, because you can just say, I have not done it, I am only supporting the secessionist forces which are there. So when we look at this kind of thing, which really started off in 1989, and later on it converted, because this arc of terrorism started moving around. It started from the Kashmir Valley, moved towards Jammu and the rest of the Jammu and Kashmir, less Ladakh. And thereafter, as you all are aware, in the period of 1992, after the Babri Masjid, it went on, we had terrorist strikes in Mumbai, and from then on, of course, it is easy to recall whether it was the Parliament strike or Mumbai 26/11, and more recently Pathankot in January this year, and Uri just about a month and a half ago. When we talk of state sponsorship of terrorism, and by Pakistan, and it's known for it, known all across the globe, what is it that we are generally doing? When I say we, the world at fair. The moment there is a terrorist strike or a terrorist act, be it in Paris or anywhere else, in London or in Delhi, everybody starts condemning that. World leaders will condemn it. Who are we condemning? The terrorist organizations. We'll say ban, Hafiz Saeed or ban Syed Salahuddin. But what is the center of gravity of these terrorist organizations? The center of gravity of these organizations is the state that sponsors them. And who is that state? In this case, it is Pakistan. And let there be no doubt about it. So what we should, and everybody must be and should be getting after, is getting after the state which sponsors this terrorism, which funds them, which trains them, which provides shelter to them, provides every kind of support. Now, that is what we must go after. Our Prime Minister in the recent months, if you have noticed, has been moving around. People have kind of criticized it at times. But the fact of the matter is, he has brought this focus of Pakistan being a terrorist state to whatever world leaders he talks to. And it is already visible. So when we are talking of state sponsorship of terrorism, let's look at what the response is going to be. And the response, the first one, like I told you, is get after the state that sponsors this terrorism. Next, the first thought which comes to everybody's mind is, let's go and bang him. The military option appears to be the most obvious option. But wisdom is that we use all elements of national power, be it the political element, the diplomatic element, the economic element, and of course, the military element. Because let the world know through diplomatic means, whether you are trying to cut them out, may not be possible to do it with everybody because sanctions don't work everywhere. We've seen it in Iraq, in Iran, in various other cases. But the fact is, there is pressure. So, isolate, again, not the very right word, but towards that, isolation to some extent. Politically, talk to the nations. Economically, think of any other avenues which you can. In these days, you've been talking about the Indus Water Treaty. What can we do? Can we review it? Is it going to have an impact? So there are other options. But certainly, the security or the military option is always there. And when we talk of the military option, there are two ways to do it. One is a passive option, the other is an active option. What does a passive option entail? Number one, it entails public awareness. Unfortunately, in our country, security is not given that kind of, or not looked at seriously. So, a public awareness of what really terrorism is, what is it doing, how is it impacting us? Terrorism does not impact us only from the security point of view. It impacts our economic, it impacts our social structure. If you have seen this movie called Wednesday, and you must have seen, what does Nasiruddin Shah say? He tells that person that when my wife calls me up in the afternoon at, have you had your lunch? It's not that she's asking me whether I've actually had my lunch. All she wants to know is, am I safe? So, the point is, terrorism, it affects the psyche of the people. And we can't afford to live as a dreaded, as a scared kind of country. So, therefore, there are certain precautions that have to be taken. We have to go in for that. There are technology which we can use, that should be taken into account. So these are the kind of passive measures which one takes. But then there are the active measures. And when we talk of the active measures, the first thought that comes to mind is the punitive action or a proactive action. People have also alluded to covert action. That is an area beyond our purview actually, because it is something which is not really discussed in the open. It is an option, all right. But coming down to this punitive action, and the latest example which the nation has seen has been the cross-border military strike, which was done about a month ago. This cross-border military strike was unique. There were a lot of unique features in this, and that's why I thought I would share this with you to make you understand. It is true that at the local level, some actions have been taken earlier as well, because that is retribution by the local commanders, and that's a part of the army to army thing. It carries on. General Patakar will bear me out. In fact, anybody who's been there knows this particular part. But this one was different. It was a coordinated military action. Time and place of our choosing, where we wanted to do it, when did we want to do it, what are the kind of casualties we were expecting or otherwise. And the part why it's unique is that we spoke about it. As a nation, we spoke about it. That we have gone across and we've done this. We have struck the launch pads of the terrorists who are likely to attack us or send infiltrators. That means we've preempted you. And we've done this. And the good part is, the Director General Military Operations has spoken to his counterpart across and told him that we have done it. So it is absolutely transparent and protocol at its best. You've done everything, you've told him, and yet the point is, which has been made earlier, he is denying it. The fact is, there is no other option available to him but to deny it, because he says that I have not been sending people, so there are no terrorists, so there are no launch pads, so fine. Because we've seen this in Kargil as well. When we offered as a nation, in a good humanitarian gesture, to please take back the bodies of your dead soldiers, they refused to do that. They said, we have not sent our soldiers. So how do you expect them to accept this? And therefore, as we know, they have been denying it, that there was no. So good for us. But what has been the outcome of this? That is important. The outcome is that the surprise we achieved can be achieved again. Because so far he was complacent, he thought you will never do it. Since he thought you will never do it, he was sitting pretty. In fact, he did not deploy his forces on his eastern border, that is with us, and he lifted these forces and took it to Baluchistan and to NWFP and FATA to use it in operations in that side. But now with this having happened, he is not sure. So therefore, he cannot use that. So that high dividend option which he thought of, or a low risk option, now he has to give it a second thought. So that is why I am saying the outcomes of this, yes, we'll have to be better prepared. Of course we are. Our army is professional, we have no problems, and our security forces manning the border and the hinterland are also equally professional. So there is just no doubt on that part. So that is what I thought I will put across this point, that state sponsorship of terrorism, the way to ensure that he stops it is to make it cost prohibitive. The cost should be raised so much that he should say, well, it is not worth it anymore. So make it cost prohibitive. That is how we should respond to a state sponsorship of terrorism by Pakistan. A word about the situation which is going around in Kashmir as well. Because like we said, when you talk about Indo-Pak relations, Kashmir becomes a key focus area. We all know that, I'm not going back into history, but say the last few years, after 2008, 2010, when General Patankar also mentioned, stone pelting started after the Tufail Mattu incident, and thereafter it went up till 2012 or so, but then it has come down up till 2015, that is last year, when we again saw a resurgence. And this year, of course, after Pathankot and now recently, it is the levels of everything, the levels of violence within the valley, the levels of infiltration that have gone up, the number of casualties, be it terrorists killed or security forces or civilians, have gone up. The ceasefire violations. Now, ceasefire violations last year in this period of the last month and a half, that is, I'm talking of September till about mid-November, was, this year it has been 68, which is 40% higher than last time. So that has increased. And what we have to bear in mind with this situation is that once these levels, why is he increasing these levels of violence? Because he is frustrated, and especially after strike, the levels of, we call it border action team actions at the border, and infiltration has he's tried to increase it, but it's been warded off by the Indian Army. Some things have come into the papers, and you must have read about it, because there is no need to talk much about things. Silence at times is very, very good. You don't have to talk about and brag about your achievements. Let the person he knows what has happened to him, and let him take care of that. But within the situation within the valley, like I was saying, so security-wise, violence levels have definitely gone up. As far as the political situation is concerned, you're all aware, because the elections did take place. The last 3 elections have been very, very peaceful. So but there is problems which comes up after that, and that I'm sure it will be between the center and the state. They're doing it, but definitely governance is a problem which whichever is the ruling government in the state has to take care, because we cannot afford to have schools of instruction, schools being burnt, or your sarpanches being killed. Now that is an area which needs to be looked into. And also, as far as the economy is concerned, the economy overall, because there are these couple of periods when trade and commerce, etc., when you look at J&K and compare it to the rest of the country, everything is up. The BPL figures are just not even 2%, whereas it is 26% in the rest of the country. So things are not that bad economically, and let's not be fooled by that. But the fact of the matter is that we have to be guarded against ethnic and communal violence or polarization, because that is not good for the nation. Governance issues, we have to see that we have to treat Jammu and Kashmir as one state and not 3 separate divisions, because as was given out in the demography and the way the layout is, the areas are larger, say in Ladakh, and very little population. So that you can't just ignore that is part of this whole state, and we have to look at it from that eyes. And the way forward really is to ensure that your police is strengthened. Build up capacities to shore up your police forces so that they can act. And as far as one thing which the armed forces do, and they like to tell the other security forces as well, is that there should be no complacency and keep the other guy on the run. Otherwise, he will make you run. So there should be, now that the momentum of the diplomatic effort is on and everything else which is going on, there should be no pause in that. Its momentum must be kept up. And that is something which is very, very important. A word, I also, whenever the Kashmir or the Indo-Pak dialogue comes up, there have been a lot of lobbies which start saying, let us first resolve the low-hanging fruit, as it were. And the thing comes up about Sir Creek and Siachen, and that these are the bone of contention and we can easily resolve it. And I think General Patankar made it very, very clear, and I'll just reiterate one odd point on that, because the frequently asked questions normally are, and the comments which goes are that it's a barren piece of land, it is not tactically important, and let's convert it into a zone of peace or scientific experiments. So that is, or we suffer a lot of casualties. But we must remember the significance of this. If there was any area which may have been only tactical, I don't know whether you understand tactical and strategic, but the fact is that tactically, this area may be of tactical significance, tactically important, but it is strategically significant. Because the Saltoro Ridge where we are sitting there, if you vacate that, then the point is to recapture that is going to be a Herculean effort, and we can't afford to do that. Because a defender who is sitting there in positions has a great unequal advantage. So for all what peaceniks might like to say, the fact is this is an area which we have got to be there, because all these myths about costs and all, it is costly. What else? What is not costly? Now, you can compare it to any security. Take a security a colony here. You can take a security agency which charges you very little, and the people who are staying in the colony will have to pay a very little money for maintenance fees, etc. But if you want it very secure, then you'll have to pay for it, to have a professional party doing that job for you. So security anywhere for anything, for a nation, security is important, but then it is costly. But we have to make and see the difference between costly and cost effective. It is costly, yes, but is it cost effective? Means the amount of money we are spending, are the dividends that accrue, are they commensurate with that? Of course they are. It is cost effective. We used to have casualties over the years, some 900 to 1000 casualties, people, mostly due to terrain and weather. But what they were earlier and what is there in the last, say, 3 or 4 or 5 years, it's come down greatly, because we've understood, we know how to live there, our facilities have improved. So let's not cow down by these things of it is very costly in terms of money, and it's costly in terms of casualties. Because what is even most important in this, it is the trust factor, or should I say the lack of trust. There is no trust at this time between the two countries. Can we trust them to? They want you to vacate this area first and then we'll talk. How can you trust them? So there is no question. I'd like to take a couple of minutes on the media, because I know that there is people from the academic world and people from the media world as well. And there were one or two issues which I thought one could share in this very knowledgeable audience. We are absolutely aware that the media has been doing a great job. Its role is important and responsibility is even more important. It's been doing a great job, like I said, in information flow. It's been able to provide information to the citizens very, very well, if I may put it. But what is a little cause for concern? One is to inform the people, another to make them aware. Now, when I say is two things, accuracy and reliability. Accuracy at many times is, kind of at the altar of speed, you like to forego this particular part of not being accurate because I have to, meet the deadline or, for TRP purposes or whatever. And this is equal to both electronic, print, whatever media we say. So when we are talking about this, I just like to say, and the reliability of whatever source or agency you are doing. So what is more important is that the citizen should get the information which is true, which is accurate. Because if he gets a half-baked information, it is more akin to a rumor, and then that spreads and he really doesn't know which part or what exactly to make of it. And therefore, the opinions that come out, those are the ones which tend to go further than the actual facts which are there. At the same time, if I have a suggestion, is, and this part also was touched upon, what is happening in our neighborhood, in Pakistan, in various countries which are around? We are not, the public is not really aware of those particular things. We only kind of put our little crupper and we just try to blind ourselves and just look at narrower things which are around us. Now that, I think, if the media can take up the cudgels and go ahead and do that, because the point which Gaurav made very well was that even within Pakistan, those chaps, there's a blackout of information. They don't know what's happening within their own country. Perhaps you can tell them that this is what is happening to you and you're not even aware of it. So I think this is one area which it could really take up. And the third is this question of social media. Now, social media and the space which social media occupies, but who has control of it? I'm afraid we, either at the organizational level within the government or the various forces or the media in itself, we are not yet up to the mark, because certainly we are reacting more to this social media. When something happens, then we try and see, and how do I can, then you start justifying and stuff like that. Why can't we be proactive in that and occupy that space? And, once you are aggressive into this action, then the other guy does not have space for it. So I think that is one area which I thought, which the media and all, and so it's a food for thought if this could be kind of taken up. And because this dialogue between Indo-Pak, India and Pakistan, which we always keep talking about, ultimately there is no doubt that maybe 10 years, 20 years down the line, whenever something will have to happen, it will happen through some kind of a dialogue. There is no doubt. But time, is the timing correct? Is the level of trust okay at this point of time? If not, then obviously it is not the best time to talk. Because nothing, despite talking every 6 months, there is one more attack. And the investigations which were going around of the 26/11, no further progress. You say that so-and-so, it's been proved, they take out a guy and put him behind bars, they take him out again. So my point is the levels of trust or rather mistrust are so high that perhaps this may not be, but let the government take a call on this. And last issue which I'd like to talk about, and this is close to the heart of those who don uniform. And I thought, again, a captive audience, and this is something which could travel from you all to others as well. And this last issue which I'd like to talk about is the dignity of the soldier. Because a soldier, a sailor, an airman is ever willing to fight and die for the nation. There is no doubt, period. He will always and every time he will do it. And let there be no doubt in that, anybody's mind on that. But what motivates him? What and how does he do it? It's a question of izzat, kabiliyat, bharosa. This is something which we talk of. He does it for the honor of his regiment, the honor of his country, for the honor of the nishan or the flag. Kabiliyat means competence. Unless he is good at his job, he is skillful, he can fire his weapon, he can run fast, he can do whatever job. If he is a combat engineer, he should do that properly. If he is a special forces guy, he should do that. He should know his job, he should be kabil. And third is bharosa. Bharosa सबसे पहले खुद पर, सेल्फ कॉन्फिडेंस, भरोसा अपने हथियार पर, भरोसा अपने साथी पर जो आपका बड़ी है, भरोसा अपने ओहदेदार पर, और सबसे ज़्यादा भरोसा ऊपर वाले पर, क्योंकि उसके बगैर कुछ नहीं होगा। और यही चीज़ है इज्जत, काबिलियत और भरोसा जिस पर फौज चलती है। हम बोलते हैं नाम नमक निशान, और ये चीज़ जो है फौज को जब वो अपनी सर्विस में होता है तभी नहीं। मैं आपको एक उदाहरण देता हूँ। एक नायक कुलश्रेष्ठ बहादुर गोरखा राइफल्स का रिटायर हो गया और अपने यूनिट से वापस जा रहा है देहरादून ईस्ट से। तकरीबन वेस्ट बंगाल और बिहार के उस इलाके में some dacoits get onto the train and they start collecting valuables, and he said, I have now retired, I don't want to do very much. He also takes out his wallet and says, यार जो भी थोड़ा बहुत पैसा है ले लो, but why get involved? But then 2 or 3 minutes later he finds that this dacoit starts misbehaving with a young girl who is sitting opposite him. And that's the time it gets his goat, and he takes out his kukri which he always carries, and he catches hold of this guy's throat. And sure enough, those fellows, other dacoits start coming, and this chap slashes. Cut the long story short, in the next few minutes, there are 3 people who are dead, these dacoits. There are 7, 8 who are injured. He is badly injured himself. There is a lot of blood which is flowing. When the train stops at the next station, he is taken out, sent to a hospital. And then when he asked, what got into you? So what he says is, killing the enemy is my duty as a soldier. Protecting the woman is my duty as a citizen. So what I'm trying to say is that we work on these principles because, there is very difficult to compare one with the other, that lifestyle or what is done. So should our citizens wait to honor our soldiers when they are dead? Shouldn't they be honored and respected while they are in service? A mortal remains come, we know everybody pays respects, etc. But taking care of that family, those kind of organizations, these services within themselves have got a lot of ways to do it, and they do it. Because for us, comradeship is still beyond life and to the next generation as well. But I think, as citizens, why should we not? And, when a mortal remains of somebody is going, I'll give you an example of, say, USA. You see, sometimes there is a movie made on this. When the hearse is going, and across the street and opposite, and you can make out that this is going, all the vehicles come to a stop because they know it is going. If it is a dead body of a soldier is being carried in an aircraft, the aircraft, gives it respect before it gets off. There are so many ways. So I'm just trying to say the dignity of a soldier, because he does so much. But this is one area with which we could keep that at the back of our mind, because that I think is very important. Because when you look at the comparison between the corporate world and the businessmen and all these young guys like you all who are there, everybody has got targets and investments to make, etc. But the difference between that and the army's lookout, or of the way they think, army also has targets. But what is his target? His target is victory. His investment is training. His outcome is a nation sleeping peacefully. And what is his bonus? A smile on the face of the citizen. That is what that means. So I think I wanted to just convey this particular part, and our people are so good, they take care, but I think it's just that it should come as a natural response or a natural reaction. I have done with most of the issues which I had to do. But if you will bear with me for just about a minute or a minute and a half, I have a few lines which I have written as a poem, which I'd like to put before you. हिंदी में है. ये एक सैनिक का तरीका है आपको, मतलब कि शहरियों को आश्वासन दिलाने का. ये चंद एक पंक्तियाँ. शीर्षक है सरहद पर सेना बैठी है. सरहद पर सेना बैठी है. मैं कल भी था, मैं आज भी हूँ, फिर गम में डूबे शहरी क्यों. बेचैन न हो, मायूस न बन, सरहद पर सेना बैठी है. मासूम की जानें ले लेकर आतंकी सीना तानते हैं. लाचार हैं वो, दुश्वार हैं वो, सद्बुद्धि कहीं गवा बैठे. जिस पर गोली बरसाते हैं वो भी अल्लाह की नेमत है. फर्क सिर्फ बस इतना है, वो जन्मे घर पड़ोस में है. जब जब दुश्मन ललकारा है, तब तब उसको पछाड़ा है. जब जब दुश्मन ललकारा है, तब तब उसको पछाड़ा है. घर आंख उठाकर वो देखे, उसे नयन मुक्त करा देंगे. उसे नयन मुक्त करा देंगे. ये सेना हिंदुस्तान की है, चाहत केवल बलिदान की है. तुम सो सको सुख चैन के संग, जिम्मा संभाले सैनिक हम। रात तनिक लंबी तो क्या, रात तनिक लंबी तो क्या, सुबह अभी आती होगी। बेचैन ना हो, मायूस ना बन, सरहद पर सेना बैठी है, सरहद पर सेना बैठी है। जय हिंद।